The more I look into this problem with the Rochester PD or the EMTs or the doctors, the weirder it gets. So I had the EMTs had me crawl down the flight of stairs because I couldn't walk, right in front of my Ring camera. Now, if you want, I can show you that they pressed my button and that every single movement is on the Ring camera, except for the time where I go down this flight of stairs. I'm nowhere on it. There's a big chunk missing. There's a whole 10-minute chunk missing in that interaction where I go down the flight of stairs. Not only is that chunk missing, it shows me coming back home. So I come back home and then I never leave and I come back home again. That is so weird to have on my Ring camera. Why is there a chunk missing all of a sudden in my Ring camera? I mean, I couldn't disappear and jump out the window. So why is the scene where the EMTs have me crawl down the stairs, why is that nowhere on my Ring camera? I mean, there was an EMT in front of it, to the right. There was me on the stairs forever, crawling down. At the bottom of the stairs, there was a stretcher picking us up. It would seem to me like somebody might have requested that footage and kept it. I don't know. Sure does seem weird that my security system is missing the most important chunk that I needed, me. So I'm going to have to call them. But watch this. The Ring camera people are probably going to tell me that they don't know why it didn't record me for those 10 minutes, even though there was motion everywhere. And even though it definitely was recording at that time. I know it was. So if the camera was recording when I was crawling down the stairs because the EMTs had me crawling down the stairs when the ambulance was called, and now I go back to look at the camera footage and there's a chunk missing because it goes like, like 20 seconds here, 20. Anytime there's a movement, it records for a while, then loops and then records. But there's a big space where there's no recording when I was coming out. And then I just come back home. And then, I mean, that's impossible. How could I come back home and then come back home again without leaving? And you can see the EMTs there too. That part's there. They showed up. But you don't see the ending. You don't see any movement of me coming out. You don't see me coming out at all. And there's a humongous chunk of the video missing. Or I should say there's a time set where there's a lot of motion, and yet there's no motion camera or nothing. I find this so weird. Doctors are acting weird. People who have black urine coming out of the penises are usually getting treatment. The notes I'm getting, like I'm excused from gym class, are weird. The way that the Rochester department came to the house and tried to convince the old man, they didn't know I was on the other side of the curtain, but they were trying to confuse him into thinking there was nothing he could do. That's wicked weird. The fact that the elderly abuse services that should be helping us with the neighbor abusing this elderly old man, or the fact that this landlord is abusing this elderly old man, or the fact that I'm disabled and this stuff is happening, they don't seem interested in that at all. They seem interested in confusing the old man and trying to not talk to me. Everything that I'm witnessing seems very, very weird, unusual, almost like there's some thing like they don't like the poor people in this area, so they use them up, or maybe they don't like sex offenders and disabled people like me, so they just decide to use them up and give them no services. Meanwhile, people from wealthy families, like the guy who drives me home, Dan, he has like 1/10 of the disabilities of me that are visible. Like if he walked into Social Security and I walked into Social Security, I would, oh my God, I would be, woof. That would be, oh my God, they would be able to tell I'm disabled just from a mile away. Meanwhile, he would have to be very convincing. Yet, because he comes from a good family in Rochester, he got a speedy, Social Security, everything. He even gets to drive. Meanwhile, I can't drive. And they force me to work. This guy, he doesn't have to work. No, he even gets paid to drive me to work. Somebody who's more disabled than him. This is because Rochester sees me as a dispensable person, so they're trying to use me up. Now, I don't know this for sure, but and I don't want to push blame. This is just based upon the evidence I have so far. So far, there's video footage missing of me getting pulled out of here in the ambulance, and I had to crawl down the stairs. We had two people come by that literally had Rochester on their uniform, and I was in the other room in the curtains, and they were literally trying to convince an old man that there's nothing they can do about getting wicked sick from mold in a giant gaping hole where water's allowed to come into the apartment for 8 years, probably longer, because the hole was gaping humongous when we first moved in. There's also another window that leaks water, and there's a mild leak in the bedroom coming in the wall. So with all that, plus this is known, it's visible from the outside of the building, and we're not the first two people to get sick. The fact that they don't do anything about this, or they don't want to take the reports, that seems very weird to me as well. And then when we go to the doctors, the behavior of the doctors in the emergency room, that seems completely inappropriate. I mean, if you have somebody who's really dizzy, 83, or disabled, or peeing black, or has swollen testicles, or has COVID or flu-like symptoms, the treatment I get is very, very unusual and weird. And now, like I said, there's a whole 10 minutes missing from the footage. I mean, how the hell do I get out of here? How did I get out? I mean, you got the EMTs here. You got me going to the hospital, but you don't got me on the footage going to the hospital. You just got me coming back from the hospital. Well, how did I get out of here? You got me coming in and then coming in again. Meanwhile, in between those come-ins, I mean, everybody knows what happened. An ambulance pulled in the back. I had to crawl down a flight of stairs, and there was a lot of motion in front of the camera. And I saw that the camera was rolling when I looked back. The lights were on. It was on the black and white setting with the little red lights, so I know it was recording. The light goes off, and then it goes on, and it definitely was. So there's no reason for that not to be on the camera. But that doesn't mean anything. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just saying that this is messed up. It's messed up that I have to crawl downstairs. It's messed up that these officials don't want to do anything. It's messed up that an 83-year-old's getting abused by a landlord and a neighbor. And when I say abused, I mean he's getting deadly sick. He's getting deadly, deadly sick. We got a neighbor smacking him around. We got old maintenance making death threats with guns. We got literal holes in windows letting waterfalls come in for 8 years. We got an old man literally getting sick. We got a disabled man getting sick. And it sure seems like they just want to finish us off so nobody finds out. But I could be wrong, or we could be dead soon. If they find us dead, that's what it is. Rochester just wanted to finish us off, that's all. And don't forget, I already had my share of my mother and state officials doing damage to my body. So I know that this is very possible. But I just don't understand why. It must be tax dollars. Our landlord owns most of the property in Rochester, and he also seems to have some pull in the Rochester court system. So with those two things combined, there might be something to this. Because he does own more property in Rochester than any other landlord. I mean, oh my God, hundreds and hundreds of apartments and houses. So, I mean, this whole strip right here has at least 24, and then another 24. Yeah, more than 100 just on these two lots alone in Rochester. And then the courts do seem to do very weird things, and with like elderly people in oxygen tanks next door, elderly people next door. It just, some of the decisions and some of the weird things these officials say, it definitely seems like they have some pull, and that the landlord has backdoor discussions with them. And so we're on the chopping block. We're not on the helping list. We're on the chopping block, I think. But we'll have to see further. We'll have to look into this further. And luckily, I keep hard copies of a lot of our evidence and send them out. That way, if either of us are found dead, people can come in and understand that this is happening. I also hide notes so that new tenants might be able to know what's going on. So if new people come in here and start getting sick, they get a little bit of a heads up on what to do so they can jump ahead of the system. Like, hey, you're going to get sick. If you do get sick, do not go to Rochester. They have it out for any tenants here. Please go to Manchester and report this. Here are some photographs already pre-printed. You know, whatever I can do to help this child coming in after us, and maybe the single mother or whoever moves into this place and gets sick after us. because the people before us were probably getting sick and they had a child, because that gaping hole was moldy and allowed water to come in before we came in. And that black mold under the sink that I've showed on my channel and sent out, that was there when we moved in and the landlord knew about it. There's also crayon marks from the kid and a hole in the main door, and our gas heater hasn't worked since we moved in. So there's something going on. And I'm too disabled and sick to fight back now. So these videos are all I got.